Hey everyone, today we're going to continue on with the digestive system and learn about the small intestine. And we're also going to be learning about the accessory organs that also work with the small intestine for its function. So, the small intestine is the body's major digestive organ. It is the site of nutrient absorption into the blood. That means once everything is broken down through your mouth and through your stomach, this is where all those nutrients will finish digesting and be absorbed into the blood so your muscles can use them for nutrients. It is the longest portion of the alimentary canal, about 2 to 4 meters or 7 to 13 feet in a living person. So it is longer than most people are tall. It is a muscular tube that extends from your pyloric sphincter, and remember that is going to be from your stomach, all the way to the ileocecal valve or sphincter of your large intestine. It is suspended from the posterior, so that is the back of the abdominal wall, by something called mesentery. So here again, you've seen this picture before. If you're going to look at it, the small intestine looks like little sausage pieces here, all coiled up in the center of your stomach. And again, it's held in the back by these mesenteries. Here, this is a picture of the pig that you will be dissecting, and this is what your small intestine will look like, a big mash of just kind of like sausage rolls. There are three subdivisions to the small intestine, and honestly, when you're looking at them, it's very hard to see the distinction between the three, except for the first section is called the duodenum or duodenum. This is the first part of the small intestine where the rest of digestion takes place. Then you have the jejunum and ileum. These two have the same function of absorption of nutrients. And the ileum, which is the end of the small intestine, will join with the large intestine at your ileocecal valve. So over here, you have your small intestine, is your first part of your small intestine is right here. This C-shaped region is going to be your duodenum or duodenum, and it's going to run into your jejunum. Now, in terms of your small intestine, there are some structural modifications. Since a lot of absorption takes place here, we want to try to increase the surface area the most we can. And as you get further down the small intestine, these structures that allow us to increase surface area are going to decrease because we'll no longer need them. The three structures that help with food absorption are villi, microvilli, and circular folds. Villi are little finger-like projections formed by the mucosa, and these contain lymphatic capillaries and they help take up liquids or lipids. Microvilli are at the very end of villi. They're tiny projections off of projections. I know, weird, right? And these usually contain something called brush border enzymes that help complete the digestion of proteins and carbohydrates. And then the last one is circular folds or plicae circularis. These are deep folds in your mucosa and submucosa, and these are important because they help force chyme, which is, remember, processed food, to travel slowly through the small intestine so that it has plenty of time to break down those nutrients and be absorbed efficiently into your bloodstream. The other modification they have is the small intestine has something called Peyer's patches. This is a collection of lymphatic tissue. It's located in the submucosal layer. And in fact, this actually, instead of decreasing, these increase in number towards the end of the small intestine. And the reason is once this food's broken down, what's left is basically what they can't break down and use for nutrients. And this has a large number of bacteria on it. So you want those lymphatic cells towards the end of the small intestine so that it can take care of those bacteria and you don't get infected or produce any kind of response to them. Over here is a picture of the small intestine that they've cut a cross section of. You can still see those muscle layers. You have your longitudinal muscle and your circular muscle. But when you cut it open, you can see the villi that are going to be on the surface folds. Here we have our circular fold. So here's a circular fold, here's a circular fold. Here's a closer question of your villus that have absorption cells in them, and lacuole, which are lymphatic tissues that help take up lipids. And then if I were to take a very small section of, let's say up here, the edge of it, and zoom it in, you would get microvilli, which have brush borders on them, and these absorb. An accessory organ is the pancreas that we're going to talk about. So this is an accessory organ. It's described as soft pink triangular gland. Honestly, if you look at a pig, it looks like chewed up bubble gum. It is found posterior to the parietal peritoneum, and it extends across the abdomen from the spleen to the duodenum, which, remember, the duodenum is the small intestine. Or the other, when we talk about the pancreas is actually pretty important. It actually produces a lot of digestive enzymes that break down all categories of foods, and they release these enzymes directly into the first part of the small intestine. This is also released with alkaline fluid, so this is very basic, and it helps neutralize the acid coming from the stomach so that the acid doesn't burn through or break through your small intestine. We don't want it to eat away. Now, the pancreas is also part of your endocrine system because it also has the function of producing insulin and glucagon, which helps maintain blood sugar. If for some reason you're a diabetic, there's an issue with insulin production within your pancreas. Of course, here's your pancreas. It shows it as yellow, but honestly, it will not be that color when you look at it inside the pig. The liver is the next accessory organ that we're going to talk about. So, accessory. It is the largest gland in the body. It's located on the right side under the diaphragm, and it actually almost completely covers the stomach. The liver has 4 lobes, and they're suspended from the diaphragm and abdominal wall through something called a falciform ligament. So over here, if you're going to look at the liver, it's on the right side. It's this big, huge gland right here. It's very, very hard to miss the liver. Over here, this is just a drawing of the picture. So here we can see the big, huge liver. Now the liver, the digestive role is to produce bile. Bile is about a yellow-green watery solution, and it's made up of bile salts and bile pigments. It's also made up of cholesterol, phospholipids, and electrolytes. Of those things that make up bile, only bile salt and phospholipids actually help in digestion. Bile, the function of it is to break down fats, and it does this mechanically, not chemically. And so it breaks them down into tiny little fat droplets where then other enzymes can come in and break them down. If we did not have bile, it would be very hard to absorb fats or fat-soluble vitamins, so it's very necessary for that absorption. What do I mean by fat-soluble vitamins? Those are vitamin K, D, E, and A. Bile also travels and leaves the liver through something called the common hepatic duct. So remember, hepatic means liver. And it enters the duodenum or duodenum through the bile duct. In relation to the liver, we also have to take into account the gallbladder, which again is another accessory organ. It is a green sac, and yes, it appears green when you look at it in the pig and in a human, and it's found on the inferior surface of the liver, so it's kind of found underneath the liver folds. When no digestion is occurring, that bile that liver makes actually gets stored in the gallbladder. And while in the gallbladder, that bile is concentrated because water is removed from it. And it stays there until fatty food gets dumped into your stomach, where the gallbladder will release the bile to help with the breakdown of fats. So over here, it's kind of shown faded because it's located underneath the liver, and you kind of have to pick it up. If you were talking about here, the liver, Bile goes up the cystic duct into the gallbladder, and then when you're ready to release it, it gets back released through the cystic, through the common hepatic and bile duct into your small intestine. So here's a picture of a pig. It's kind of hard to see it, but this little circular outline, it has a greenish tint in it. That's going to be the gallbladder, and I'll help you identify and find it on your pigs as well. In terms of activities of the small intestine, what happens is that chyme, or that processed food, reaches the small intestine and it's only partially digested. Carbohydrate digestion has began and protein digestion has began, but really no fats or nucleic acids have been digested at all. However, by the time it reaches the end of the small intestine, digestion is complete and most food has been absorbed, which is why the small intestine is the major digestive organ within your body. In terms of chemical digestion, the intestinal enzymes from those brush border functions, so remember those brush borders are going to be on your microvilli. They help break down sugars into simple sugars and help proteins digestion begin. What actually helps the most is something called pancreatic juice. This, of course, pancreatic, is produced in the pancreas. It has enzymes that, again, neutralizes the acid coming from the stomach, and it helps digest all food groups. So this is where starch, proteins, fats, and nucleic acids are further broken down. Starch is broken down by something called pancreatic amylase. Now, amylase should sound familiar because amylase is also found in your saliva. It's called salivary amylase. And it also broke down starches. So when you hear amylase, you should automatically associate it with a starch. Trypsin helps break down protein. Lipases break down fats. Think of lipid or fats. And nucleases break down nucleic acids. Now, what causes your pancreas to release pancreatic juice into your small intestine? Well, of course, your parasympathetic division of your autonomic nervous system, specifically your vagus nerve. Also, local hormones can travel through the blood and cause your pancreas to release pancreatic juice and cause your liver and gallbladder to release bile. Those two hormones are secretin and cholecystokinin. I cannot say that. CCK. And that's going to appear on your test, so I'm going to go ahead and star that as well. Here is a picture of the release of those two hormones. It says that your secretin and CCK are released. CCK and secretin enter the bloodstream. They're going to flow through the bloodstream until they reach the pancreas, where they're going to go inside the pancreas and cause it to release pancreatic juices. Then other ones are going to continue to travel through the bloodstream, where it's going to cause the gallbladder and your liver to start releasing bile as well. In terms of absorption, water is going to be absorbed along the entire length of the small intestine, but also anything from the end of digestion, all those nutrients are also going to be absorbed. Most of them are going to be absorbed through cell membranes, and lipids can also be absorbed through cell membranes through diffusion. These substances are then transported to the liver, and the reason they go to the liver is because the liver helps filter and take out any toxins or anything that's bad for you, where they will go back into the bloodstream and distribute it around the body. So how does exactly it move through the small intestine? How is it propelled? Well, peristalsis, again, just like all the other organs, is the major means of moving food. There are also something called segmental movements, and this actually helps mix chyme or food with the digestive juices more than it helps propel it forward, but it is a type of propulsion. So that is the end of today's lesson. I know that was kind of quick, so if you ever need to go back and re-watch any part of this lesson, please do so. After everybody's completed it, I can always allow you and turn on the skip function. So, in fact, I'll actually turn on the skip function. But let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you guys have a great day.